Catherine. I'll pay you later. So I'm here to really not tell you a lot of stuff that you don't know. I'm here to complement some of the things that you know, and you see where it fits right in terms of your knowledge, your experience, your education. This is not instead of all the knowledge, relationship, education, experience you've gone through. This is our view from the C-suite. I used to chair the capital committee of 3 of the companies in the big companies. And usually in the capital committees, they have the CEO, the CFO, the COO, the head of human resources, the head of marketing, the head of technology, and some other CXO level executives who are relevant to whatever is being proposed. So we used to have salespeople, marketing people, engineers, consultants, and others proposed to us, usually strategic investments or investments of pretty big amounts. And we would listen to them, a little Q&A. And when we finish, we'd kind of get around together and we discuss it. Should we go with them? Should we go with their competitors? Should we do things internally? Or should we do nothing at all? Those were usually the choices we had. Okay? And what I'm trying to share with you in this half hour is really just think of it as a tasting menu of how we decided and how for you to be relevant relative to not only this meeting or presentation or conversation or discussion, but to get to that level and beyond. So real quick bits. Now, one thing I'll ask of you is, since I really like the interaction, as I go through this, if you have questions, raise them up. I know there were 5 minutes later for questions, but if you have questions, just raise your hand. We'll send you the box. I'll manage the time. Don't worry about it. Otherwise, I'm going to get bored. I know what I did and what happened. So feel free. Don't be shy. So starting off, this is what I decided I'm going to pick for you today. How we view salespeople, engineers, etc., how we decide. How do you want to be relevant in these meetings with us? How to prepare especially. Probably 90% of the people I met were not prepared. I don't mean they didn't work hard. I don't mean they were not knowledgeable, experienced, beat their quotas, but they did not prepare the right things that they must prepare. And that's all I'll talk about. What are the musts that you have to do? You heard earlier that at the buying side, only 15% may give you value. And that's at all levels, not just at the C level. So imagine where it is at the top. And then I'm going to talk about how the C-suite is evolving in this digital age. We are evolving, just like technology is evolving, just like the sales force is evolving, just like the marketing force is evolving. We are evolving. And I'm going to share with you quickly how we're evolving. And then we're going to talk about really how we prioritize investments. The purpose here is how do you position your proposal to be higher on the priority list. And the last but not least, if you get into a final type of proposal to the C-suite, what do you have to have in it in order for us at least to really be interested, to engage us, and also to organize you and organize us? We actually used to give this to the people presenting to us in advance. Tell them, look, you don't have to use any particular form, any particular video, any particular channel, but we're telling you what we're going to be looking for. So it's to save them time, save us time. So quickly going in, all we care about is the value. We don't care about the product. We don't care even about the solution. We don't care about the technology. If we're talking about the C-suite again, there are other people who work with us, for us, who are responsible for that, and who are experts in that. So if you talk about the products, the features, the functions, even the solutions, all that people will be much better than us in terms of understanding it. I had 2 CIOs report to me, 1 marketing head report to me, 2 sales heads report to me. I don't know a lot about what they do. They're experts. They're good. I trust them. We hire them. They manage it. But we care about what value. It's back what you heard also early on. You know, PJ, value, value, value. Now, what is value? How do you define value? Anybody? How do you want to define value? Just speak it out if you want. Okay? Okay, so this is a lot of ways people define value, but one litmus test, one easy test to say is, tell me what it does to any of the following. A, do I have to do it by law, by compliance, by regulatory? If I have to do it, then I'm going to do it. I'm going to fund it, right? The only question is, who's the best vendor to do it? And do it fast, and do it right, and do it maybe economically. Those are going to be the tests of choice. Then there's also stuff I got to do internally that are required, that have value. So if I am running, I don't know, a manufacturing plant, and the machines are down, I got to replace them. So I got to replace them with the best machines, the right machines, most efficient machines, etc. This is the musts. In order to be ongoing business, I need to do these. That's going to have priority. Priority number one. When I was in TWA, one of my first companies, we had 747 planes, and they went all over the world. And the Federal Aviation Administration, the one that kind of controls the air in the US, said, those planes make too much noise over New York City, John F. Kennedy Airport. Engines make too much noise. So we have to retrofit the engines, okay? And I was thinking, you mean New York City is making too much noise for the planes, right? No, they said the planes make too much. So we had to change the engines, cost us money, but we do it. Now, P&L, profit and loss, if it brings us revenue for growth, quite often one of our objectives, or for profit, one of our other objectives. That's value too, financial value, economic value. Same thing with the balance sheet. If I got assets and you make those assets more effective, better managed assets, that's value. If I have liabilities and you help me get rid of the liabilities without hurting my revenue and profit, that's value. So those two financial statements that we are responsible for, that we are measured by. Then we go to what else? We want to basically improve our own employees. Employees in terms of how they work, how they're happy, all the CPI, employee satisfaction scores. If you bring value to employees, you bring productivity, which is going to drive the business. Then, let's not forget what? The customers. So if you bring us value to our customers, obviously, you're going to have customer retention, customer acquisition, customer share of wallet. All of that is going to be value. And last but not least is the CXO. The CXO is me. What do I mean by me? I mean, it's something that makes me look good, whether I'm the chief marketing officer, chief sales officer. Quite often, it will touch on these first five. But if it's additional value for me, then I'm even more interested. You know, that's just logical. And we'll talk about that real quickly. So let's look at the preparation piece of it. Think of preparation as a pyramid. You need to know my industry. So when I say my industry, I'm talking about you need to know my KPIs. You need to know what's important to me, how I get measured, me being the industry. So if I am the pharma business, for example, if I put a product out to market faster, that's huge for me. On average, it takes about 11 years and $1 billion, no, 9 billion euros to put a product out to market. So if you help me do this faster, it's a lot of value. Okay? It's a KPI in the pharma, very important. If I'm talking about retail, a KPI is the revenue per square meter, because space is very expensive. We're talking about the bricks and mortar, et cetera, et cetera. But know the top KPIs, because if you link whatever you're proposing to these KPIs, it's clearer for us. It's a simple message. And then you look at the company. The company, most of them are public companies, and we usually will have to communicate information. There are a couple of reasons why we communicate information. One, because we have to. It's a law. Two, because we are telling you, everybody in this room, and a lot of others, that we have challenges, we have goals, we have issues, we have problems, we have needs. And I want you all to think about here how you can help me. So you're all going to be working for us for free when you try to figure out what you could sell to us. We like free resources. All consultants, all salespeople, all of them who are not on our payroll are free resources. And we love that. So we're going to communicate stuff today. We need to do this. We have a problem with that. So preparation is about what did we communicate, our strategy and our goals. Make sure you've looked at these. And when you look at the company, one thing, just one quick thing that you should not overlook. If it's a public company, usually once a quarter, I'll go out in front of the street, the stock exchanges, the analysts, and I'm going to give a report on a quarter. What happened? Usually it's a conference call that will last anywhere from 20 minutes to 1 hour. I usually will give a report, usually the CEO, CFO, and other executives, and then there'll be Q&A. And usually the Q&A basically touches on problems, issues, challenges. Because those guys, they spend all their time doing nothing but research us, the industry, and the company in order to recommend stocks and make a lot of money. But don't worry about the stock. And if you listen to that call, which is public, by the way, in just about all countries, all Western countries, and if you listen to that call, it will give you very differentiated information. Also, if you're with me in the meeting and you haven't listened to the call, I probably will know. You probably may ask me something that came out. It's public information. So think of it, 20 minutes or an hour of your time every 3 months. Is that a good return on your investment? When I had sales report to me, I was very careful about having them out of field. But it was very important for them to do certain things that was very good value to them in terms of advancing their account, shortening the sales cycle. So what if it's a family company or a private company? Do you think you can get information if I don't have to publicize anything? Any idea? Yes, no? How many show of hands say yes? Okay, how many say no? How many have no hands? So the answer is yes. I am a company, big or small, and I don't have public information, or I refuse to, or something legally. Now, look at my competitors. Look at the industry. What are their issues? What are their concerns? Most likely, they're very similar to mine, the 80-20 rule. So if I'm an auto company and you see the price of steel is going up, which they don't control, and they squeezes their margin, and they need to figure out how to automate, how to have less dependency on steel. The company that's my competitor probably has the same issues. And when you come in my office and you know that, you're going to be thinking the way I'm thinking. How do I change this? How do I challenge this? So there's no excuse not to be prepared. And then the CXO. The CXO back to me. The CXO, there's a lot more information on the CXO than just checking me out on the website or on LinkedIn. There's a lot of official public information. One simple example. When I was at Charles Schwab, the senior management team was compensated, everybody's compensated salary, bonus, long-term incentive plan. Where the big money is the long-term incentive plan. So the long-term incentive plan was based on public for the top executives, revenue growth, profit margin, and there was a third KPI. There was a third one, and that was CSS, customer satisfaction score. Our customers score, how they rate us, how we gave them service, good, bad, horrible. And we were compensated on CSS. So if the management team beat their revenue growth, they beat their profit margin, and they didn't make their CSS, what do you think happened to the long-term bonus? It was called donuts. Donuts. We got nothing. We're growing the company. We're growing it profitably. but our customers are less satisfied. Well, we had a benchmark of 90%, so they had to be at least 90% satisfied, and we averaged about 94. Now, if you have a proposal, and that proposal, helps me increase my revenue, reduces my cost, all that good stuff, and it also helps the customer satisfaction, I'm just going to listen a tad more into what you have to tell me, because it really resonates and relevant to my business and me. It's back and the and, okay? So think of the CXO as what's in it for him or her. Okay, let's move on to, this is an org chart. This is a classic org chart. You can go 20 years ago, 10 years ago, today, you're always going to have these jobs. Chief Marketing Officer, Chief Human Resources Officer, Chief Information Officer, et cetera, et cetera. Now, what has changed? What has changed in the C-suite in this digital age? Two things have changed. One, our jobs have changed. The people who are there, their jobs have changed. We have evolved to different roles, same roles plus. So what does that mean? As a CFO or a COO, used to be more a COO is kind of more of the execution. Now you're getting into the strategy. The CFO gets a lot more involved into the business and the strategy. Even the CIO gets involved in the Chief Marketing Officer gets a lot more involved. Chief Sales Officer, a lot more involved. So all these guys and women, they get a lot more involved, and there are new roles popping up. You heard about it, BJ talking about there are a lot more stakeholders. So a lot more stakeholders get involved in decision making. There's a reason for that, because there are a lot more people joining the C-suite. Why? Because things are moving very fast. Technology is moving at an exponential rate, and you need to keep up with it and focus on what you need on the C-suite to be able to actually go and deliver the demands. So what do we have? We have Chief Digital Officer. Chief Digital Officer, 2005, there was only one Chief Digital Officer of big companies like $1 billion plus. One. In 2004, the last time they checked the data, because it was just going up everywhere, was 1,700. From 1 to 1,700 who reported who were in the company, and now they're reporting into the CEO a lot more. So they have a lot more influence. But then you got Chief Customer Officer, Chief Innovation Officer, Chief Design Officer, Chief Data Officer. That's a lot of C's, a lot of CXOs. Even when I was in a taxi today, there was a Chief Futurist Officer. I'm saying, that's good, I'll get back to them in 5 years or something. I wasn't sure what exactly that is. But what is the difference between a Chief Sales Officer, Chief Marketing Officer, Chief Data Officer, who does what? Who's responsible for what? So the roles are very muddled right now. But what you care about is you were to think of, how can I convince this person to be on my side? What's in it for him or her? And make sure you make the alignment. So you have the same proposal, the same solution, maybe even the same product, if that's what you want to stick with, and you're convincing them differently. So the CMO, you're going to target the revenue growth, the customers, the acquisition. The CFO, it could be the expenses, the margin. The COO, it could be the execution, the efficiency, the utilization. The CDO, it could be how to make it more agile, more mobile, etc. The CIO, even the CIO, is becoming more of a business person. They're actually hiring CIOs from the business world to bridge the gap of technology. Okay? And it's not, it used to be when you go back that I had a CIO here, and she reported to me as my CIO, and I had my one-on-one meeting with you. That sounds good. And I go over to my CFO here. You just happen to be close to each other. That's all. So I go to my CFO here, and I say, I had a really good meeting with my CIO, but I didn't quite understand everything they were doing. So I'll tell you what, have them report to you, and you'll explain it to me in my language. Back to the conversation. Back to the simplicity. You heard simple earlier on. Make it simple, not complex. And that's what it came about. It used to be 70% of these people, functions reported to me in big companies. It went to 30% in 5 years. 5 years. It's huge. It's not that they were fired. It's not that they quit, but it shifted. And now it's moving back The chief marketing officer is getting a lot more C-suite exposure. You got some going on the board now. You're a lot more than before because it's back to the customer, customer, customer. So you got to remember back what you heard, follow the customer earlier on. You know, when I was a kid, I used to ride horses. And my father told me something I'll never forget. He said, Jacques, it's a lot easier to ride a horse in the direction that it's going. Yeah, so just follow the customer. So which means what? When you look at this pie over there that we saw before, not only look at the industry, the company, and the CXO, look at the customer's customer. Because that's what we look at. So you look at the customer's customer, I look at the customer's customer, we're on the same page, we're aligned. There is some connection. Relevance, back to the relevance. Very important. Okay, quickly, prioritizing investments. It's very simple. You know, I've been in 4 companies, the process has not changed. We start with what we have to do, then we go on to the internally mandated projects, externally, internally. Then we do what brings us the most money and revenue and growth and all that stuff. And then when we run out of budgets, we say all these projects are deferred, which means we'll never hear of them again. So what's the point here? The point is if you have a solution, a product, a proposal, try to align it as much as possible toward compliance, regulatory, risk, all the things that you think are not as important sometimes in a proposal, because a proposal brings a lot of money, so they'll care about that. No, we care about this first. We care about anything that is security. You heard about security. You heard about risk. You heard about fraud. All these things will have priority. Align it to a KPI there. It will have a lot more priority. Going on. You got a proposal to us. What do we want from you? Get to the point where you're going to help us. This is not about, this is my company. Let me tell you everything about my company till you die. You know, we want to know. Get to the point. Where are you going to help us? You know, are you going to help us in terms of growing our customer base? Are you going to help us in terms of growing the share wallet? Are you going to help us in terms of reducing expenses in this category? Be specific. Get to the point. Then, what is the business solution? And you see it's not the product solution, it's not the technical solution. What is the business solution you're proposing? What's the before and after? Where am I now? Whether it's my customer or me and my people, and where am I after I implement whatever you're proposing to me? Give it to me visually. Talk to me. Don't show me all this stuff. Talk. That's what I love about Showpad. Visually, I get it. You know, I mean, it's simple. From my point of view, I get it's not the technology. It's the communication. It's a conversation visually. Okay. Tell me what's the before and after. And then, if you have references, tell me what they are. I'm not looking for you to give me proprietary information. I'm looking for you to tell me that I'm not maybe the first to take a risk if there is anything risk or if I'm risk averse. So tell me, you've done it with these guys, and this is what we saw the results. It's not a reference unless I could check the reference, of course, and validate the reference. The best kind of reference is obviously if you've done it internally in my own company. The next best, if you've done it in my industry. But always if it's done at all, would be nice than not done at all. Okay? So just think of what the references are most relevant to me, and those are the ones you want to cite. With measurable results. That's a key word, measurable. Because quite often people will say, we have this reference, but it's not as convincing a reference when I call on the reference. You know, I never forget there's like a famous speech by John F. Kennedy during the Cold War in, with the USSR before the breakup. And he has this famous speech. He goes, before the end of the decade, we shall have a man on the moon. He was talking to NASA in Houston with all these people. And big budgets, big power, first race, everybody applauds, standing ovation. And then he calms them down, and he finishes his sentence. And bring him back alive. Ah! you know, it's a key detail. The devil is in the detail. So you have to have the measurable references that are communicating to me and convincing to me. Then the impact is what we talked about. KPI, financial, anything else you could talk about as we talk about self-benefits. That would be nice to have. Timeline, real quick one line. We're going to implement it over the next 9 months, assuming it's approval within the next month. Then I'll let my technical team worry about it. And next steps. You'd be amazed how many meetings I've had. Those that were good. Everything is fine. No next step. The next step is thank you. Well, I'd like to be thanked, but I'd like a next step. And the next step is, what do you want me to do for you to advance the deal? If you don't ask for something in a meeting, any meeting, not just a type of presentation or discussion, then you didn't have a good meeting. Best kind of meeting, if you got something out of me, I got something out of you. That's the best kind of meeting. I have to do something for you when you leave the room. Because if you leave the room and I don't have to do anything, most likely I forget about you. I got a lot of other priorities. So make sure you get something from me. Make sure you get something from me. I'll make sure I get something from you, otherwise I probably won't see you again. That's how it works. So that's the next step. So I'll leave you with a thought on this. These are real quick bits, but I'll leave you a thought on this. Quite often, people get tools, and I've seen from a lot of presentations, people get tools, but they're not applied early, and they're not applied often. And they're not also effectively endorsed from within. So you need it from the top, endorsed all the way down, in order for it to be effective. When I was 19 years old, I was taking a little trip in Calabria in the southern part of Italy. And I remember walking by and I see this little old lady sitting down, fortune teller. She's reading palms. And I said, hey, it's fun. You know, I go give her my palm. She looks at it, it seems like forever, 30 seconds or so. And then she gives it back to me. She goes, sono stanco, I'm a little tired. I said, I can't read it. I said, no, go ahead. You can tell me what you saw. I don't mind. And right away, she looked at me almost like very mean. She goes, okay, you know, you're going to be miserable, unlucky, and unsuccessful for the next 2 years. I'll never forget that. And I'm the eternal optimist. I knelt down and I said, and then, because I'm free, 19 plus 2, I'm 21 years old, I got my whole life ahead of me. And then, she was then you get used to it. True story. But what I did learn out of this is that you start early, you get used to things. She was wrong, but she gave me a message. So my message to you is, start looking at the tidbits in terms of the customer, what's important to them. It's all about the customer today. And fit it in wherever you think is most efficient. And I wish you a lot of luck. Thanks, everybody.